So I
Mm-hmm.
grew up listening to everything, and growing up, one of my favorite songs was "A Change Is Gonna Come" by Sam Cooke.
Okay.
So Sam Cooke is one of the main influences in regards to, especially like my first song that I ever produced, which is the song that I released called Anthem. And
Mm-hmm.
that was directly influenced by Sam Cooke because, I just kind of studied the way in which that he wrote and produced The Change Is Gonna Come. And that really influenced me to do it for Anthem. That can have so many different manifestations. I would say that in terms of who I would like model my career next to in terms of pop culture is probably Miguel. Miguel's a big influence of mine. I love Miguel a lot.
Yeah.
Bruno, The Weeknd. But again, like I pull from everything. I pull from anything. I've always said that I don't like to be an artist that limits themselves in terms of how I create or what I create. So literally, I could be watching like a Lady Gaga video and be like, "Oh my days!" Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, I
Yeah.
live from that. So I try not to limit myself in terms of my creations. So production was something that I got into out of kind of the inability to get somebody to do what I actually wanted them to do. I feel like, especially being a black person, it's like the minute you go into like a studio and you're like, okay, this is what I want, it's almost like they maybe unknowingly shove you in kind of the R&B genre. So for my early career throughout my teens, whenever I went to the studio, and I'm trying to get something created or produced or whatever the case may be, it would always be kind of this clash between what I'm asking for and what would be given to me, which kind of, as a creative, when it's not translating the way you want it to translate, it can be a bit difficult. So when I started studying music in university, production wasn't necessarily my main goal, but it kind of gave me an outlet. So I realized that there was this whole aspect of music in terms of like production that I could get into, which would, for me anyway, which would allow me to kind of have the ability to speak and to say, yo, this is what I want, do it like this. When I was in university, I ended up actually falling in love with it and ended up actually just being like, okay, like as opposed to going to somebody and just saying, yo, this is what I want, I can actually do it myself. And I mean, I still definitely do co-productions and stuff, but at least I have the ability now to create what I call like a skeleton draft. And I'm like, yo, this is what the song is. And, anybody else that works with me kind of just adds to that song. Outside of me going to somebody unable to kind of say, this is what I want, and then just getting what I don't want, I can now produce the base of what I want and then have people kind of add to that and bring it to life. Why? You know what? For me, I think when I was growing up, I think as a musician, especially as a songwriter, you try to find yourself. And I spent a long time trying to exist within the R&B sphere. And it just, that was a part of me, but it just never felt kind of complete. And I realized that once I started to write music and started to produce music, it wasn't R&B. It wasn't in that genre. It didn't sound like the R&B that I think people had expected. And then while studying as well, like I just got exposed to a lot more stuff, like a lot more rock music, a lot more classical, and when you do the history research into like even pop music, what we call pop music, a lot of that was derived from black music, what I mean? And so I realized then that as a black person, I didn't necessarily need to be like, okay, I need to just do R&B. I can literally do whatever it is that I want. But then at the same time, I started to see people come out that kind of broke certain barriers, like The Weeknd. When he dropped his first project, I just remember being like, yo, it's not, like I just remember seeing a black person doing music that wasn't kind of the traditional thing that I was used to growing up. And so I was like, I didn't need to. Then Miguel came out, and I was like, yo, I remember his what is it called? Wild Heart album. That's one of my favorite albums ever. And I remember listening to that and all the rock influences. Bruno came out, and I was just like, I really do not have to limit myself into saying, yo, I just want to create R&B. I was just like, I'm an artist. And so for me, I not only did I gravitate to pop music, but then the writing process for me was just very easy. Like it just felt right. It felt like me in terms of how I expressed myself, how I sang. You know, it just kind of it just happened. I suppose, like certain things that I heard musically, it just resonated with pop. So you know, it's one of those ones where it took a long time for me to be like, okay, you know what, I'm pop. Like I was forcing this R&B label for so long, and then I was just like. So I know it's not hard. It's literally about recovery. It's about opening up after heartbreak and saying, you know what, we've all been hurt before, we've all made mistakes, but I'm willing to love again. And I feel like, especially as black men, I feel like we don't oftentimes confront our emotions as kind of forward as something and saying, yo, you know what, one of the lines is, I've made my mistakes, yeah, we all did, it cannot be a crime. And I think it's important for us to be able to admit like, yo, you know what, I messed up. But at the same time, we all deserve love, and we all deserve the ability to forgive ourselves for our wrongs and to accept love, you know. So I wanted people to just remember, like, yo, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're currently going through, no matter how you feel about yourself, there is kind of, you know, there is more there, and you should be open to that.